Welcome to the AniMoguls. I am the man in black, Megabucks.
And I'm the taily survivor, Tycoon.
In today's episode of the AniMoguls, we're going to explain why most people hated the ending of Lost. Now, whether you loved the ending or hated it, Lost is still one of the most interesting TV shows of all time.
Several writers on Lost have mentioned that they had a huge problem with the way the show was marketed to the audience. All the promos would always say something like, "All your questions will be answered, and all the mysteries will be solved on tonight's episode of Lost." And this would continue season after season after season, with more and more unanswered questions piling up.
It's no wonder viewers got impatient, and then angry, because the odd mystery here or there could be ignored. But what about the mysteries that were integral to the first few seasons? Like the significance of Walt's psychic powers, or why babies that were conceived on the island always ended up dying.
They didn't answer every question, but when does it end? It's like trying to explain what happened before the Big Bang. The writers can't answer every question. For some people, no ending will ever be enough. At some point, you just have to accept that some things are a natural phenomenon. They exist and we don't know why. I'm not trying to justify the ending, I actually want to find out why viewers are so upset, why they feel so cheated, whereas the writers feel like they gave us enough explanations and that the viewers are just being difficult.
I think I have an answer for you. Basically, the ending of Lost didn't address a question that all viewers ask themselves every single season. And that question is, why is the island special? That's what people want to know, because at first the show had all these bizarre events and phenomena occurring. But all of these could be explained. So it wasn't fate that pulled the plane down, it was a giant magnet. The polar bears on the island didn't appear out of thin air. They were brought there by scientists who were conducting experiments.
So they started the show with a realistic plane crash and some fantasy elements, but also explained some phenomenon away with a sci-fi feel. Often, it's up to the viewer to interpret an event as either magic or science. The ambiguity is kind of the point of the show. The battle between science and blind faith. But even then, we're told by season 3 that the island has unique properties that the scientists are trying to understand and study.
Kind of like Magnet Hill, which is this place in New Brunswick, Canada, where a car left out of gear looks like it's rolling uphill and defying gravity, but it's actually an optical illusion. Or those weird sailing stones that you can find in Death Valley, California. Those bad boys can travel hundreds of feet on their own, even though no one knows exactly how they managed to do this.
So even when Lost veers into subjects like time travel, they stick to phenomena that are grounded in theoretical physics.
Exactly. The problem starts when pure fantasy elements are added to the end of the show, and no real-world explanation is given to ground that magic in some sheen of reality. Like the man in black turns into smoke, why? Just 'cause. And Saeed is drowned and dead for 2 hours before he comes back from the dead. Like, what's the real-world explanation for that?
So having the island be special because of the magic water is unsatisfying, because it doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know. The island is magical because it's magical.
And the way to solve this is to give the audience what they want. And what the audience wants is to know the origin story of the island. Like, how did it get to be magical? Because when we first see Jacob's mother wash ashore on the island is already magical, even thousands of years ago.
So if we look at season 1, we start with the arrival of the Losties and the story of how they came to the island. Then we go back in time a few decades to when Ben arrived. The Dharma Initiative set up camp even before Ben and his father arrived. So then the audience is taken back even further. Soon we flash back to Richard's first arrival on the island in 1867. So the characters interacting with the island come and go, but the island itself was always shown as being magical.
In the 2,000-year span between Jacob's mother's shipwreck and the Losties' arrival in 2004, the island doesn't change. So no matter how far back the writers take us, the island was never a normal, average, boring island. But to the audience, the island is just like a character. And all characters, especially characters with superpowers, have origin stories. So people expected an origin story for the island, but never got one.
Imagine if instead they'd shown a flashback 2,000 years ago, where a bloodthirsty band of pirates arrive on the island, mistaking it for another island that looks just like it. The pirates are hoping to find some treasure, but then there's fighting and betrayal. A brutal murder on the island pollutes the water with blood. causing the island to become darker and the river to glow. And that could be the island's magical origin story. And in keeping with the show's theme, they could also have a scientific version where scientists reveal that the island is a geographic anomaly caused by a strange asteroid or gravitational force, or radiation, or the alignment of the planets, or whatever. Take your pick.
See, that would have been more satisfying to the audience. Yeah, it would have been harder to find a science-based explanation, but they managed to do that for most of their plot devices, so I'm sure they could have come up with something. I mean, the Vampire Diaries actually faced a similar quandary, where they had to explain how the originals, aka the first vampires ever created, came to be. Klaus's family used to be an ordinary family of Vikings who crossed to the New World, but after they arrive, their mother's magic and their father's treachery ends up creating a new race of beings, vampires. And what's this? No one asks where the mother's magic came from. Why? Because the origin story of the Mikkelsen family was given to the audience, and that's what they wanted to see.
So, by the time Lost season finale rolled around, we'd seen tons of flashbacks, how people from various eras all came to the island and are affected by its power. We saw how the island changed them. For the finale, we needed to see the reverse, aka how people affected the island to turn it into the weird and wonderful place we know.
I don't know about you, Tycoon, but it's weird to me how people who hate the ending say that they wasted their time watching the show. Because even if you didn't like the ending, Lost was always more about the journey, and the characters growing as people and becoming better versions of themselves.
I mean, like Mike from Linkin Park said, journey's always more important than the end or the start. So even if you didn't like the ending, it doesn't take away from the complex characters and their great dynamic. Like how Sawyer used to mock Hurley for his weight when they first met, and by the end of it, he sacrificed his own chance at rescue so that Hurley could escape the island.
Yeah, that was amazing to watch, because you're going through a roller coaster of emotions. And when you finally come out on the other side of the finale, everything's changed. It's like somehow this tragic crash ends up being the best thing that ever happened to these people. They were literally lost, with no real roots connecting them to the people around them. But somehow on this bizarre island, they find themselves and discover meaning and purpose in their lives. And this diverse motley crew who start out as complete strangers become a tightly knit family, who literally live together and die for each other.
Lost broke the mold when it came to television, setting the stage for other intricately planned shows like Desperate Housewives, Prison Break, Heroes, etc. So thank you, Damon and Carlton and JJ, for putting an end to the era of episodic television and ushering in a golden age of storytelling.